tickets and 4 churros for just $36. Call 844-REAL-TIX. Inside the box. Headed. Opportunity for RGV. Can they get a good opportunity? Simple. Easy does it. And a tap-in goal in RGV. Third here in the 83rd minute. And they are flying high here in Harriman, Utah.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Down to the Valley podcast, brought to you by the Beautiful Game Network, Icarus FC, Roughneck Scarves, and Natural Beauty Spa. We've got a quick show for you all tonight. We have 2 games to talk about, so I just want to say hi to everybody right here. Obviously, big thank you also to all of our patrons for all of your support. And today, we'll be talking about it depends on who you ask, but to me, at the end, the way it happened, I think I was expecting a loss against Phoenix Rising, but I guess just the way that the goals happened, it was disappointing for me, right? At least. And then last night's match where the Toros with an alternative squad defeated Real Monarchs 3-0 at Zions Bank Stadium. But we'll be analyzing those 2 games in just a little bit. Before we start, I do want to go ahead and welcome back our guest host for tonight from the South Texas Sports Podcast. We have Ray Silva on the show. Welcome, Ray. How's it going?
Hey, Edson. Thanks for having me back once again. Hello to all the patrons and watchers right now. To anyone who's viewing this, I appreciate the invite back once again.
Definitely, you're always welcome on the show, but let's go ahead and get to the meat and potatoes, Ray. So last Saturday, the Toros took the trip all the way to Phoenix in order to go up against the number 1 team by far in the USL Championship, not just this season, but in previous seasons before this one. In Phoenix Rising. Right off the bat, we knew it was going to be a very, very difficult game, especially with the fact that, a lot of us pretty much gave our prediction that they were going to lose. But going into this match, the most surprising aspect was that Wilmer Cabrera decided to move his defensive lineup a little bit. What do you have to make of that?
Well, look, you can kind of view this in a 2-way form. You knew you were going to have to go higher up in altitude in another midweek game. And then you're going to be back-ended by another long flight back home on a late Sunday night where you don't have a lot of depth in the squad. You don't have of focal number 9s, so you're just gonna be playing piece it together and hope somewhere it sticks. That sticking point wasn't the defense, though.
Go ahead and elaborate on that.
Well, elaborate on that. Okay, so we normally would see a line of 4 in the back, but we didn't. We were trying to be let's become the dynamo on the road for a bit. But that backfired defending set pieces. It looked ugly.
That's an understatement right there. Before we continue, I do want to also welcome our co-host, Jacob Young. Jacob, how's it going, man?
Yeah, it's going all right. Not gonna lie, I almost forgot about this, but hey, I'm glad I'm here and I'm ready to talk some soccer.
Definitely. It's been a long time coming. Like I said, we have 2 games to talk about. So like you mentioned, Ray, right off the bat, line of 5 with the Toros. Obviously, you had Tyler Derrick on goal, and then line of 5 with Carter Manley, Adrian Vera, Grant. Hold on, look at that. Eric Pimentel, Camden Riley as the central center back, in that line, and center back line of 3. Then Grant Robinson, and then Adrian Vera. And then in front of them, a line of 4 with Juan Carlos Azócar, Rodrigo Lopez, Juan David Cabezas, and Cal Edwards. And then up on top, Ronald Alexis Cerritos. Jake, we heard Ray give his thoughts on that lineup, but Jacob, what were your thoughts on that lineup going into this match?
I mean, you knew what you were going to get with either type of lineup, especially against Phoenix Rising. That was the toughest part, considering the following week you drop points at home against Austin Bold. So we knew coming into this, you just give your best lineup possible and hope for the best. And I think that was, from Ray's perspective, I think that's a fair statement that he gave. And in my opinion, yes, that's a fair lineup, because you do want to defend a bit on the road, considering, well, there's the best attack in front of you. So that's one of those things that, like, you just have to hope for the best.
So, in my opinion, and I posted this on Twitter, I really wasn't happy with this lineup, especially since we're going up. Look, I understand the line of 5 in theory, right? And then line of 4. But you bring in, and this is obviously is no diss to Grant Robinson, but you're going up against the top team in the USL Championship, and you're bringing in Grant Robinson, who hasn't seen decent playing time in a long time, since the beginning of the season, if I recall correctly, right? That's going to affect your chemistry big time. And we saw that. You mentioned, Ray, that it was very blatant when it came to defending set pieces. So that was my biggest gripe, obviously, at the end of the day. At the end of the game, seeing a 3-1 loss, hindsight is 2020, right? But to me, I felt that the changing of that lineup from what we had been used to seeing from the last couple of weeks to, in this match, bringing in somebody that hasn't seen a lot of playing time, it raised a little bit of a question mark on my head. But From what I can see, that 5-4-1, yeah, Wilmer was definitely trying to minimize the damage that Solomon Asante and the other Phoenix Rising attackers would try to exert on the Toros. But as the scoreline shows, it really did not work for him in the first half.
No, it didn't. And, eventually, injuries have been a key cog for this team. I mean, you didn't have Dispe, you didn't have Lan Kuzain, but you bring back a Grant Robinson, a player who had seen some key minutes in the very early portion of the season. Then he got hurt, he came back, and then he got hurt once again. And now you bring him back in not a high stakes game, but you bring him back in a game where the opposition was just too good on offense, where you weren't going to get many opportunities to attack, and you kind of play out of a 5-4-1 formation. You should have laid back and gone a 4-4-2 diamond midfield type thing for me. But then again, hindsight's 2020, and we just took a big old L.
Yeah, honestly, definitely. So the first goal came in the 14th minute. Excuse me. Came in the 14th minute off of what appeared to be a cross by King, if I recall correctly. And it was one of those plays where Darnell King was trying to find a cross over to his teammate, but nobody gets a touch to it. And somehow that ball went past Camden Riley, went past Eric Pimentel, went past Tyler Derrick, and into the net. Now, looking at it closely, it seemed like Eric Pimentel got the slightest of touches to the ball, and that was enough of a touch to keep Tyler Derrick out of the equation. So it was very fortuitous, but that gave Phoenix Rising the momentum it needed to try to get more goals out of it, because Phoenix Rising is one of those teams where they're not going to settle with just one goal. They're going to go, if they smell blood, or they're going to go all out. They're very hungry for goals. The fact that coming into this game, they got a plus 22 goal difference with only 10 goals being allowed, which means they scored 32 goals so far. They are a very goal happy team.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about it, though, before. We talked about it actually before this game a week ago, that the difference was they play in a weak conference, which would be the Pacific Division. Yes, of course, we all know now that they're just that strong of a team. But at that time, it's kind of true that they were able to score more goals. The only difference is, of course, RGVFC, just like Ray said, we took an L by deciding to do a 5-back, which I think, in my personal opinion, that's a good idea if you have the players. But we didn't have the players. So, yeah, it's just one of those situations where, like you elaborated on, 14th minute goal, we saw it. It was going to be a rough night after that 14th minute because of that. Now, of course, the second half was a bit better, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on now. But it's just one of those situations that, I knew what to expect. I was hoping for better. Got worse.
And then a couple minutes later, it was around, I think it was at the 19th. Yeah, in the 19th minute, Phoenix Rising get the second goal. Beautiful collective play. I'm not gonna lie, with Phoenix Rising, but definitely the defensive line looked very flat-footed against that 1-2 passing. It seemed like we say in Mexico, is that cuando los de Toros iban, los de Phoenix Rising ya venían. Like they were like 2 steps ahead of Phoenix of the RGVFC defensive line, and then the third goal came in around, it was the 27th minute, where a cross into the box, and they left Dadashov wide open in the 6-yard box, at the border of the 6-yard box, for him to just tap the ball inside the net. I felt like maybe Tyler Derrick could have been a little bit timid there, but then again, the angle coming in from that free kick might have been a little bit too it's hard to calculate. That's the word I'm looking for. But at the end of the day, like, to me, if you're going to be defending free kicks in that particular matter, there is no way that you should let your attacker just breeze into the box. And if you look closely, that was on Camden Riley. Camden Riley, I guess he was looking everywhere but who he was marking. And by the time he realized that there was somebody unmarked, he had already tapped the ball inside of the net. So horrendous marking, horrendous organization in the back line, defending. And then in the 35th minute, Phoenix Rising could have gotten a 4th goal, once again, off of a set piece. And it was just lucky that the shot hit the crossbar and not. Because if not, oh boy, it was just, we were exposed horribly by Phoenix Rising.
Well, the good thing is that 3 goals, 15 minutes was pretty much the vaccination that the Toros needed, at least for this game.
But you see, Ray, that is one thing that is so frustrating about this team. We've
I
seen it
agree with
time
you,
and
Jake.
time again where it's the second half. It's the second half where they care about the game. What happens to the first half? It's out the window because it's over. And so we give up those goals. And we've given up those goals for the past 5 years like that.
Hey, look, I understand, but just I'm not trying to defend the team or anything like that. It was just the way it was set up from the very get-go.
No, I
That
get it, but why does I agree with Jacob at this point. Why does it have to wait until Wilmer gets mad and barks at them at halftime for the team to wake up? And it's not the first time that the team has played like that. This is the first time I think where it has been this disastrous.
Yes,
But
that's what I was trying to get to right there. And you beat me to the punchline. This is the first time where it's been absolutely this bad. We have not seen this bad of a beatdown since who knows when, at least in the first half. So credit to that. I think that it should be more of a defensive alignment mistake that may have happened. Okay, we're not used to seeing Camden Riley start as often as we are often seeing him now, but this loss probably came at a good time then, because now you kind of like hit the full reset type of thing and start again a second semester knowing what you already have. This is just like a first half conclusion of what we have on our roster, have in our depth chart. Now we can kind of like turn that page over to Real Monarchs, if we may.
speaking of depth chart, speaking of roster, Wilmer Cabrera made a mention during the pregame interview via Zoom that you attended last week. He mentioned that about the second half and other teams pretty much getting reinforcements into their squads. You told me what he said, but I would like to. I'm pretty sure the fans would also like to hear what the situation is for the Toros, if we can expect any kind of reinforcements in the second half.
I really don't see anyone coming in, because whatever like they had like proposed, they went a bit over, and we weren't really seeing we weren't really gonna see the fruits of more reinforcements coming in. So with that being said, this might be what maybe the team may be going with the rest of the season, and that's just that. I mean, don't have an Aitor Lopez, who could have been another number 9, so he gets hurt in the practice. So there he goes out the window. Kyle Edwards, we don't know if he has that full 100% the game fitness yet. Probably not still. So right now it's just going to be what we have, and that's it. False nines all over the place.
Jacob?
I mean, hopefully that's a different story. But of course, we all know it's been the injuries. And this team, if healthy, is going to be amazing. But yeah, I think I'm with Ray. I don't see anybody coming in, even though what Wilmer Cabrera said, I just don't really see anybody else making that effort or getting an attacker. And I mean, that's going to be that. Now, RGVFC have stepped up their game just a bit and have been able to put more shots on target throughout a couple of games. I'm not talking about Phoenix. Phoenix was kind of a giveaway for that, but scoring a goal on the road, that always gives you benefit, even if it's one of those consolation goals that doesn't mean anything. So just, I mean, yeah, I don't expect anybody to come in that's going to be brand new into this team, especially that it's second half into the season. And I mean, obviously I would, but I don't see it really happening.
Now, granted, I do feel that in the second half, whatever adjustments Wilmer made really improved the team. They took a bit of more of the lead when it came to possessing the ball, trying to keep the ball and trying to create some attacking opportunities against Phoenix Rising. And like I said, in the 55th minute, when Carlos Azocar gets a goal, I believe it was Adrian Vera with the assist, if I'm not mistaken. A beautiful cross. I wish we could see more of that a little bit more often from everybody in the club. But at the end of the day, you know, Phoenix Rising hunkered down, trying to beat the Toros at the counterattack, knowing that the Toros would be forced to take charge, trying to look for a second or maybe a third goal. You know, so they're trying to beat them in, I guess, with the counterattack. Even and at the end, I feel like maybe Phoenix Rising kind of felt that the game was finished. What was hit in the 71st minute? Phoenix Rising like completely replaced their three attackers, Dadashov, Asante, and Moore, to bring in, you know, pretty much their bench players, Adekoya, Egbo, and Sadie. So I don't know how you guys took it, whether they like, I don't know if I should feel offended by that or not, you know, by putting in these players that early or taking them out that early. But at the end of the day, the Toros get a 3-1 loss at Phoenix Rising Stadium. And going into this upcoming match that happened last night, we felt a little bit more calmer with the situation that, I mean, Real Monarchs really isn't the best team in the Mountain Division. They would give you a little bit more liberties to be able to play how you want to. However, it was pretty obvious that Wilmer was going to be rotating that lineup to try to give some of the starters a little bit of rest, since we do play San Antonio FC on Sunday. So one of the things that came into my mind was, how good is this depth going to be? Because remember last season and the year before, when we would have, in fact, I think it was last season, we had a weekend match against Los Dos where it was like, what was it, like 4-4 it ended or something like that. That was 2019. It was in 2019.
Oh, yeah, we were up like 4-2 as well.
Yeah.
They came back
So
and scored 2 straight.
they equalized, right? And then we had a midweek match against Fresno, I think. And we got thrashed in that match. And then I think last season we had a similar situation where we played Los Dos, and then midweek against Real Monarchs, where we lost 5-2 when we were playing pretty much our backups. So it was one of those things where we wanted to see how much better the depth was this season compared to last season. And this was the perfect opportunity to put them to the test. And honestly, I think, I don't want to say they passed with flying colors, but I think we saw I think overall they played well. And there were a couple of players that I think stand out, that are raising their hands to hopefully earn a spot in the starting 11 of RGVFC?
That I'll say this, the team didn't use Juan Kuzain at all for these last two matches. Although he was listed as a substitute against Real Monarchs, I
Mhm.
kind of see him being one of those starters against San Antonio. That's just me playing a hunch there.
Mhm.
Uh, Edwin Cuero, he was another guy that made his first start as a Toro. What a wonder strike!
Oh yeah.
What a wonder strike that was. That was like a beautifully hit ball.
And then the
Like,
fact that it hits the crossbar and then goes into the net de campanita, I think that was just icing on the cake.
and then you had James Murphy, who's finally getting himself back into game rhythm, and he had himself a nice ball game last night.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I really wasn't surprised by James Murphy. He's been very consistent the times that he's played in the midfield. The only reason he's not starting is because Juan David Cabezas is in front of him. And now Juan David is as we know, he came off right after the second half started against Phoenix Rising due to injury. So James Murphy, I think he's holding up that midfield well. And then we saw here that the Toros went back to a 4-4-2 formation with Tyler Derrick in goal and Lewis Ramsey, Carter Manley, Camden Riley making the start once again, and Edwin Cuero as your defensive back line. Then you had Babu Karjai, James Murphy, Grant Robinson, and John Henry Sanchez in the midfield. And up on top, you had Juan Carlos Azocar and Christian Sorto. Now, honestly, I think the beginning was more. I felt that Real Monarchs looked a little bit more organized, looked a little bit more composed, they looked a little bit more dangerous than RGVFC. Then against the momentum, Edwin Cuero gets a strike. And I think what made it more surprising was the fact that after he receives the ball from James Murphy, like he didn't think twice about it. He just shot that from 30, it looked like 30 yards and put that in the target. I think it just goes to show that like maybe Edwin Cuero has, that shooting accuracy from far away that might help the Toros if it is something that he can do on a consistent basis. But then after that, it seemed like Real Monarchs, they were trying really hard to control the ball. They actually had more possession than the Toros in the full game, 53.5% compared to 46.5%. And then you had a situation in the 29th minute, if I'm not mistaken, where you leave Davis one against Tyler Derrick. Good job by Tyler Derrick to close down the spaces and avoid the equalizer. But that play ended up with a Tyler Derrick injury, where in the 42nd minute, he couldn't deal with the pain any longer, and so as a precautionary measure, he asked for to be subbed out, and Colin Miller was brought in. But at the end of it, Real Monarchs had some opportunities as well. The Toros had the opportunity to get a second before stoppage time, and I had posted it on Twitter that Babu, I felt maybe should have put a little bit more power behind that pass, because I felt like the ball kind of was a little bit behind Juan Carlos Azocar, which killed any speed that the Venezuelan winger had to get past. I believe it was Halsey, and that killed the play. And it was correct me if I'm wrong, it was like a 5v2 situation in the 50th minute of the first half in stoppage time.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where it was a little bit of a frustration because you could be two up going into the break, being a little bit more relieved that hey, we've got this team on the ropes. We can put them away with one more or two more in the second half and make sure we take the three home.
Jacob?
Yeah, with Ray, I mean, it was very important to have that first goal. Of course, it felt a little bit after the first half, or after the first half, and it felt a little bit like Austin Bold at home. And what I mean by that, not necessarily that RGVFC didn't have enough chances, it's that they only had a 1-0 lead on the, or just in that first half when they could have had a 2-0. So that was kind of course, look, yes, you can put this team away, but you got to do it correctly in the second half. And of course, Coach Wilmer has to bring in the correct tactics to not allow something like the Austin Bold game to happen. Yes, I keep referring to it, but it's so true that you're up 1-0. You have a chance to be up more. You're not. So just hope that you can kind of close it out in that second half and really have this team that you've already beaten once at home to beat on the road again this time.
Exactly. You leave a lifeline for you leave a lifeline for the opposing team.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the second half, now with Colin Miller coming into the match, right off the bat, Real Monarchs had two back-to-back clear chances in front of Colin Miller. The first one was a corner kick that was headed was going into the upper 90 of the near post, but Colin Miller was able to swat it off for a corner. And in that following play, there was a situation where Monarchs execute the corner kick. Toros regained possession of the ball, but for some reason did not clear that ball away. Christian Sorto, I think, originally had possession of the ball, tried to dribble past the Real Monarchs players, loses the ball. There's a huge pinball commotion going on inside the box. The ball ends up actually landing, I believe it was on Flores, and he tries to go for a power shot that Colin Miller was able to kind of deflect off for a corner. But it's one of those defensive situations where, had it been any other team, I feel like that would have been the equalizer, and the momentum would have swayed so bad again against the Toros.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's just one of those things where Colin Miller, you know, granted, the only game time he's only seen was against Rayados, okay?
Yeah.
But now you get to be put in a real game time situation. I think he handled himself pretty well. He wasn't like, oh, Tyler Derrick's replacement. No, by no means. He just came in, did the best possible job to kind of hold that clean sheet down, and which was something that that has not happened within the last 3-4 seasons. Now we've got a couple of clean sheets on the road, Orange County, Real Monarchs now, and just goes to show that now this team is just starting to build on that depth now.
Yeah, definitely. How many times have we had situations where we had to rely on depth and they weren't as reliable as they should have? Now, I will say this. I'm honestly very glad that even when we had to rely on depth, there was no need to put in Josue Soto in the match. Definitely not my favorite player at all. I feel like every time he plays, there's at least one mistake that cost the team dearly. And so I'm definitely very glad that the other players that, like Grant Robinson, considering the fact that we would see him more as a outside back, with the Toros, being put as a center defensive midfielder. And I feel like he's done a decent job to not create those mistakes that can be advantageous to the opposing team, at least against Real Monarchs. Talking about Phoenix Rising, I mean, they are a whole different breed out there. And then in the 54th minute, the Toros get the second goal, kind of taking advantage of some bad miscommunication by the Real Monarchs defense. Kyle Adams and his teammate stop and try to defend both of them at the same time, try to defend Juan Carlos Azócar. But in that situation, they left the whole right flank open for John Henry Sanchez to run in from behind. Azócar sees this, passes him the ball in a very good one-on-one situation against the keeper. And John Henry Sanchez, finishes that opportunity, and that is his first goal of his career with the Toros. So good opportunity for these kind of players to get some sort of confidence as the second half of the USL Championship season is coming by.
I'm kind of glad he finally got his due in for John Henry Sanchez. I kind of felt like he was one of those unlucky substitute / starters that he kind of deserved a little more just due to the performances that he's had all season. I'm kind of glad he got his breakthrough goal, but good for him. Now you can probably have him have at least one more midfield / forward type guy that can hopefully kind of give that spark where needed as a substitute, or even continuously even be a starter at this point.
Jacob, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say this. It's not only good for John Henry Sanchez and all the substitutes that were put on the pitch at the time, it's also a great evaluation for the coaches. Whether or not you're talking about Wilmer Cabrera, Justin Echeverry, whoever's on the sideline, it's great for them to see, look, we've got a couple of extra players on the bench that we can use in situations like this. We all know that this isn't going to be the only situation where we have to play, or where the Toros have to play about 3 games in about 4 days or something crazy like that, because you had that Saturday, then Wednesday, then Sunday. And so, I mean, that's a lot on a body for a player in general, whether or not you're starting or not starting, considering that you had to come back from, Salt Lake City, which is about a 4-hour flight. And given the fact that they're going to be smaller jets, there's not a lot of legroom, and all that fun stuff about traveling isn't that great. So my point to all this is just that, you have all that happening, and it's just going to be good to have that type of depth later on in the season.
Now, here's another thing. I think it also puts a little bit of pressure on players like Alexis Cerritos, on players like even Christian Sorto, even though he did get the start in this match as well. But it also kind of shows them that if they continue to not perform as the season goes by, there's somebody behind them that can actually put up a challenge to take away the starting position from said player. How many times during the past couple years did we mention that there was very little competition between the roster for the Toros? You had the players that you knew were going to be starting starting players, with the occasional Dynamo loanees, but they could be on a slump pretty much as best as possible, or as much as possible, because they knew that behind them there really wasn't any depth that can replace them. I remember that time, we I forgot who we played. I think this was in the 2019 season, and you brought in like a whole new defense, and this was at home, I believe. And you knew right away. Oh, it was that LA Galaxy game. because you brought in your bench for I think like half of the defense for the defense. And where did LA Galaxy end up attacking to score those goals? Through that part of the field where that bench player was playing. It was Zach Jackson, if I recall correctly. But there were multiple instances where you had to use some of the deaf players, and you can tell right away the huge drop in quality between the starter and the bench player. But it just goes to show that we did improve when it comes to the depth chart and maintaining some sort of competitiveness between the lines. And then going back into the game, it was in the 83rd minute. The 83rd minute, the Toros get their third goal of the night, and I think I explained this play very well. This is one of those plays where if they do it to you in FIFA, you're throwing that controller to the wall in rage because of how sweaty, cheeky, and easy the Toros pass the ball around the Real Monarchs defenders. With just one 1-2 pass, they were able to get past the whole lineup. Rodrigo Lopez even had time to pause, see what he needed to do, whether to shoot or to pass the ball. And the worst part is Christian Sorto running in from the outside of the box unopposed. Nobody put up any kind of what's the word I'm looking, opposition to Christian Sorto to slow him down or force him to kind of go the long way around to go around him. No, nothing. He just ran directly from the outside of the box into the far post just to tap that ball inside of the net. I'm pretty sure the Real Monarchs fans were feeling a little bit disappointed and frustrated with how easy the Toros scored that goal. But it also goes to show how well I feel like those exercises in practice where they kind of do, I think they call them el rondo, Jacob,
Rondos.
The rondos. Yeah. Where you're kind of forced to, pass the ball at the first touch. It goes to show that they are kind of, at least in this particular scenario, they're able to translate what they learned in those exercises into a game day scenario really, really well. Obviously, with the help of how timid Real Monarchs defense is, including Kyle Adams. I'm sorry, Kyle. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Kyle,
What?
but you have been done in by the youth unfairly. But it was one of those goals that was scored that I had to put the hashtag apago la luz y me voy.
Mm-hmm. Jake-
And of course, it also shows how bad, yes, how poor the Real Monarchs are this season in general. There's a reason why they're last place. And I mean, if you're able to exploit them like that, you just have some poor defense. And if their defensive side is bad, RGVFC were able to take advantage of it. Every single team in the USL have been able to take advantage of it just about. I don't believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's Real Monarchs do not have a lot of wins, is what I'm trying to put on here. So, I mean, one of those situations, good for RGVFC being able to get a lot of time and even getting more of their bench to be able to score a couple of goals, taking advantage of the Real Monarchs. That's just what you want to see that in that warm up to where you play against your rivals.
So at the end, the Toros are able to get back on the winning column. The Toros are now with 8 wins in the season, 4 losses and 4 draws, with a total of 28 points. They're still 5-6 points behind El Paso Locomotive in their fight for first place. But now we look forward to Sunday's match against San Antonio FC, where San Antonio FC, it looked like they were starting to wake up going into the second half of the season. But that joy was very short-lived because they lost last night against El Paso Locomotive. They had lost against El Paso Locomotive before as well. Let me grab the situation. All right, so they had defeated Colorado Springs Switchbacks on the 17th of July, right? And all of my San Antonio friends, they're starting to get a little bit what's the word I'm looking for, hopeful, right? That this was the return of the San Antonio FC that they love and blah 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 blah. Okay. Then they defeated New Mexico United at home 3-0. They lose against El Paso Locomotive 2-1. They defeat Austin Bold 3-0, and this is the game where I was like, oh man, I think they're waking up, because how difficult was it the last couple of games to score at least one goal on Austin Bold? And then the fact that they scored 3 goals at Bold Stadium, it left me worried. And then yesterday they lost 2-0 to El Paso Locomotive.
On the road too.
On the road as well. So now, like I said, they will be facing off against the Toros this Sunday. But what are you expecting from San Antonio?
You know, I'm gonna say this right now. The Toros are 6 points behind El Paso. Okay. Meanwhile, the Toros have a 5-point edge over its next competitor, which is Austin. They're at 23. But if you look at 3 through 6, it's just a very fine margin of 2 points in between. And who's in that last spot right there? San Antonio. So if you want to create that separation gap, guess what this becomes again? Even though Coach Wilmer has denied it to me in press conferences, and even more so in this previous one, when I asked him in Spanish, he goes, no, none of these games are 6-pointers. Now they do become, because now this is where you want to separate yourself from the group that's trying to get into the mix for at least try to get hosting a home playoff game, to where you're going to have to find yourself on the road. So I feel like this becomes another 6-pointer against your most heated rival, to where you're going to have to like pretty much like find a way to beat San Antonio at home. You're going to have to win, because you've already given up 2 results to Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is where you want to just put a little bit more of a separation line between yourselves and the pretending group.
Jacob?
Yep. I mean, I do have to agree with you, Ray, for sure. These games, well, they almost become must-wins. Very much. Yes, of course, this Sunday's game against San Antonio is a must-win. RGVFC just need the wins at home. Yes, of course, we're not talking that we're going to miss the playoffs or anything like that, but you start to drop points at home like you did against Austin Bold, that doesn't look that great, especially that you're trying to, well, get some separation from 3rd place, 4th place, and so on. And, of course, how well they've been doing this season, that is anticipation that you need that 3 points. Now, of course, when you go on when you play that next game, depending if it's at home or on the road, you still would like to most likely win it. So, yes, of course, these games will become must-wins, but for sure this Sunday is a must-win against San Antonio. Not because San Antonio is good or anything. It's all due to RGVFC needing to just continue that momentum that they've created throughout the season, especially against San Antonio. They haven't really let off against that team. It's been very close matchups, but now is the time to take advantage of it at home, getting 3 points.
So we do have to remember that at Toyota Field, we were unable to defeat San Antonio. Both of the games at away ended with 1-1 draws where the Toros had to come back from behind. At home, the Toros looked like they could have run away with the match. It was that disbalanced where the Toros had the clearer opportunities. They weren't able to get the shots on target. They still won 2-1. Even with that goal by San Antonio, it never seemed like San Antonio would cause enough danger to think about them equalizing. But I do think that right now, I think it's going to be a completely different story for this Sunday's match. And I dare to say that it is going to be another draw between both teams. Now, we do have to take into consideration that arguably San Antonio's pillar, PC, is out for injury once again. So they do have Abu that they brought in the middle of the season, but it's just not the same. So that could be something that could be exploited by the Toros. But honestly, the way both teams have played each other, it's going to be hard to break them apart. Or at least each other. I am definitely going to put in a prediction of another 1-1 draw this Sunday.
Well, I'll go next, and I'll definitely say it's going to be. Well, I think the Toros will be able to get it done at home, get 3 points, and it's going to be 2-1.
I'm gonna go ahead and mention Toros hold a clean sheet, and it's not gonna be a pretty game by Toros standards. It's just not. Will we go back to the way that it was gonna be an ugly win, not having any shots on target? Absolutely not. I think that they'll be a little bit more clinical. It'll be a 2-0 win at home.
Okay. Seems plausible considering the situation that against Real Monarchs, they did have like a 70-some% shooting accuracy. So I hope that trend continues into the Sunday's match.
But one number I did want to mention, thanks to USL Tactics Twitter account, they did put out a graphic to where the one number that just really concerns me, and I hope they start picking it up a little bit, is the crossing accuracy. I think it was prior to the Real Monarchs match. It was only a staggering 23%.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They've actually gone down to like, there were some games where they were down in the teens, And we talked about it before, and I mentioned that
if there's a weakness in that Toros offense, it's that.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you notice, the Toros tend to play based on their average positions. They don't really play out wide. It's when you force them wide where it seems like everything falls apart because their crossing accuracy isn't that great. But you gave your prediction. So my bold prediction, 4-0 thrashing because Matt Cardoni gets red carded.
All right. Well, I'll have to change my mind up a bit, but not really, because it's still going to be pretty crazy. And we're talking 9 goals total. Both teams 5-4 RGVFC. Both teams we'll have some trouble the following week as we see 2 red cards by each side.
Oof. For you,
Dang.
Ray?
Dang, Jacob, you really set the standard there. For me, given that, man, I'm gonna have to say a 3-0 win, but somehow, some way, Wilmer being Wilmer, will say something to a fourth official and will find himself red carded by the first half, thus leading the Fighting Gerson Echeverries to fulfill us, to take us to the promised land. It will be 0-0 at the break, and the Fighting Gerson Echeverries will prevail 3-0.
Okay. That would be very, very fun to see. But guys,
And bonus, real quick.
okay.
Gerson will talk in the post game presser.
Definitely. Oh man,
And
that
go,
would.
and go after you again.
Oh man, don't remind me. I'm out there like trying to evade all those rocks that he was throwing, that shade that he was throwing at me. It was just hilarious. It was just like there was one where he was talking about, the difference, because he was talking about the difference between this season and last season, now that he's not a head coach. But he mentioned that, it was pretty different being an assistant, and he said now that I don't have anybody that is going to be doubting or questioning your game day decisions or anything like that. And then right away, Ray just like points a finger at me and starts laughing. I'm just like, oh my god. It was something like that, but it was not the only time that he threw shade at me in that press conference. But that's the way that's the way we banter with each other. So it's all good. It's all good. But guys, that's gonna be it for this week's episode. Be sure to, if you guys missed any part of it, be sure to check it out on the video archive on YouTube and or Facebook.com. We'll see you all next week. And guys, Ray, Jacob, any last words?
For me, I'm just gonna give a quick shout here real quick. I will not have an episode this upcoming week. I'm gonna be dedicating it to like a summer break. It's time for me to stop recording podcasts for at least 1 week. You can find all of our episodes archived on anchor.fm/SCBS, Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, Spotify. All of the podcasts are available there. No podcast for me next week. Although
go ahead.
Although I will be trying to get some other guests for the following week.
Jacob?
All right, I'll just go real quick. Follow me on Twitter at JakeTheYoung456, and yeah, I mean that's about it. Really, hopefully the Toros can get it done on Sunday and stay in the fight for first place and stay in the fight to keep a host opportunity for playoffs.
Well, guys, we'll see each other next week. Y'all be safe out there, and let's go Toros. Take care.